I said, Dad, I'm ready to work for you. He said, absolutely not. I was like, what?
So you were working in the restaurant world at 13.
Customers have transactions. Guests, they're welcome all the time. The culture is contagious.
Positivity is contagious, but negativity can be too.
Changing a tarnished industry and community involvement.
They have to be crushing it.
As long as you're learning from something, I feel like it's not a lost cause.
Man, I'm glad I didn't know what I didn't know at that moment.
Exactly.
Welcome everybody to episode 8 of the How They Crushed It podcast, sponsored by Direct Mortgage Loans, my wonderful place of employment. Today's guest is Nick Liberatore of Lib's Grill here in Baltimore. Nick's a Baltimore guy. He's running a great business. He's definitely crushing it. And he's got a wonderful story to tell that starts at around the age of 13. So check it out. We can't wait to show you what Nick's all about. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 8 of the How They Crushed It podcast, sponsored by Direct Mortgage Loans, where I work. Today we have another true Baltimorean, not Baltimorean, like sometimes, Baltimorean, I can't even talk, Baltimorean, Nick Liberatore from Lib's Grill. You've heard of Liberatore's, you've heard of Lib's Grill, Liquid Libs, they cater as well. He's got businesses he's involved in all over this town. And we're pumped to have him. He's got a business that is crushing it, and can't wait to jump into it and hear all about it. So welcome, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you, man. So, we always start this with some fun, and especially, I'm married to an Italian woman, so since Liberatore's in the family is all Italian, I got a couple questions. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to tell you what Google told us, and then get your take on it, and have a little fun just to loosen it up.
Google might know more than I know about myself. That's scary.
No, not always. It's not about you specifically. But my first one is, what is the most famous Italian food?
The most famous Italian food?
Like the most popular. Like when you say to Google, what's the most popular Italian?
Pasta? Pizza?
Pizza.
Oh, man.
And what about the most popular Italian food in Italy? It's pizza again.
It's pizza again?
Pizza again.
No way.
So I'm guessing you sell a lot of pizza?
I'm more of a pasta guy myself, but we do sell a lot of pizza.
Okay, that's what I figured. And then second one, this is one my wife always asks me, so you're going to get a kick out of this. Why don't the Italians have their own version of St. Patrick's Day since we're in the spring right now?
I don't know.
I don't know either. She has a T-shirt that says "Kiss Me, I'm Italian" that she wears every year. Every year she says, "Take me out for Italian food on St. Patrick's Day," and we have a little fun with it.
I love that.
So yeah. And last one. This is there's no right or wrong, but Bocelli or Pavarotti?
Oh, Bocelli. I've seen him 4 times in concert.
Dude, I love that answer. I missed him. He just came to Baltimore not long ago. Did you go?
CFG Bank. That's where I was. CFG.
Oh, yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Well, look, we do a couple segments here. Everybody, you've done the same one with our previous 7 guests. We're going to talk a little bit about Nick's story. We're going to talk about your sales and marketing story, and we're going to talk about what's happening right now in the spring of 2024 that's working for you. So, without further ado, my friend, give us the story. Young Nick in Baltimore to a guy running multiple restaurants and crushing it in the restaurant business. Tell us how you got there.
Oof, that's quite a story. I appreciate you saying we're crushing it. There are days that it doesn't feel like that, but I think it started to see my dad. I mean, my dad was always in the business, so if I wanted to see Dad, if Alex and my brother wanted to see my dad, we had to go to work. So we would drive with him as busboys, not of the legal 16-year-old age, probably 13, bussing tables, dishwashing, and we would go hang out with him, close the restaurant with him, and get to spend time and kick ass in the restaurant.
So you were working in the restaurant world at 13?
They're dishwashing and bussing, yep. Owings Mills.
Question to ask you immediately, was your dad harder on you and your brother than he was on other employees?
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt about it.
I would have bet on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 13 years old, bussing tables, that's your entree into this thing?
It was exactly that, and my sister and my brother were both involved. My sister in a lesser capacity, but my brother was as well. I fell in love with it, and he said, absolutely not. So it was kind of a tale of 2 stories at that point, and then I just kind of kept grabbing as much information as I could from my uncles and my cousins.
How old are you at this point?
They're still 13. So 13,
13, 14. You're already interested in how business runs.
Fell in love with it, yeah, right then and there. I loved the fast pace. No day was the same, and it was interacting with guests and fellow colleagues and colleagues of all ages. I mean, at 13, I was obviously the youngest person there, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that I was that 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old that we have today. So it's kind of nice to culminate that.
That is so great. And that, by the way, that's something I've heard from others that we've had the privilege of interviewing, is that everybody started early and had an interest early. That's kind of born in you, right? Do you agree with that statement?
I think you at least have to be brought into it early enough that you can understand everyone's perspective. I mean, if you don't understand how it feels to really grind it out with a staff member at a young age, then I feel like you can't manage.
But you were interested. Nobody put that in you. You were just interested.
No, I mean, to the point where when I was heading into college, I wanted to pursue hospitality, and in the end, my dad was like, "Are you sure?" My mom was like, "Don't do this. What are you doing?" My mom's the bookkeeper for the company. She's like, "Please, your sister and brother have a good plan. Do that." But I was like, "No, I love it," and he encouraged me to do the business end of it. So I got a double majored in business administration from Loyola Blakefield, and then I went to University of Delaware.
Okay, cool.
And hospitality with Delaware. So I was kind of dual major.
That's great. So when you get out of college, what happens? I
said, "Dad, I'm ready to work for you." He said, "Absolutely not." I was like, "What? What do you mean?"
So this is the second time he said.
He really doesn't.
Absolutely not.
Even some days it feels like he doesn't want me in the restaurant still. But no, we ended up going into BBI, so Blue and Brand at Outback. But I managed the Fleming's Steakhouses. So I was in Baltimore as well as Richmond, Virginia, managing a Fleming's.
Wow. I ate at that Fleming's. It's no longer here.
I know. Ruxton's there, though.
Yeah, the Ruxton's there. But okay, so you're out and you're not working for the family business.
Nope.
You're learning. Are you? Well, at that moment, are you comparing notes with your dad? Are you guys talking about? Do you guys talk about the business?
All the time. All the time. We were comparing, from hiring processes to technology that they're using to the marketing materials to how they design restaurants. I mean, just the whole 9 yards. And I was really falling in love with that process and really didn't know if I was going to come back into the family ties at that point. Ultimately, I wanted to own and operate my own business one day, but I may have thought of a more long-term position at Fleming's, and I think being away in Richmond was a little bit too far for me.
Okay, well, back to the joke from the beginning. There's 1 degree of separation in Baltimore, man. Nobody likes to go too far once you're from here.
3 hours is too much, so I need to come back a little closer.
So you're living it at that point. You major. I mean, you 13 years old. You double majored in it.
Yeah.
You're going out and learning in a bigger company. You're talking about it with your family, who's got this local thing going really, really well. Because your family business was doing well at that point, right?
1988, and they've been cruising ever since.
So you're nothing. You're out there working for a different company, learning a different way.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the trajectory? Talk to us about how you go from learning through the Fleming's group to coming back into the family group.
So there was an opportunity for me to be an operating partner at a location in Ohio. And again, that 1 degree of separation, Richmond's a lot further than even Ohio. So I wasn't too thrilled with that. And at that point in time, Cosmo Savino, one of our partners at Lips Grill, actually, they were interested in what was Manhattan Grill.
I remember.
And that space became available, and I think it was amongst the partners, but more so Cosmo's, hey, I think another restaurant here would be great. They're like, what do you mean? They're right next to each other. A different concept. And then they kind of talked, maybe it's steaks, maybe it's oysters, and they were like, okay, well, who's going to run it? And they were like, well, what if we ask Nick? And at that point, that was put on the table. I was like, oh, yeah, 23 years old, I can be a GM and potentially partner down the road of a restaurant? Yeah, why not?
And it's with the family, so people you trust.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Yeah.
And how was that transition? That's a question I'd love to hear. How was the transition back in from, because I imagine you're working at Fleming's and you've created some autonomy for yourself. Yeah. I mean, you're your own man, even though you're young, you're your own man. Now you coming in with the family. How does the business change, but how does the dynamic change for you at that point?
I mean, I think I went in very novice and I came out super confident. And it was another humbling experience to come out on the other side and say, hey, you're actually the head boss. You're in charge of operations, hiring, firing, the whole 9 yards. It was a great humbling experience. So that was a very, it was great to have my now partners and uncle and cousins involved in that, and that helped a lot. But, having Dan Chousted, who was our chef partner as well, he, with his background, he was actually the Daniel of Christopher Daniel. So.
I remember, and I saw I saw the little write-up about you in the Baltimore Magazine less than a year ago.
Yes, it was.
Great job.
I appreciate it.
So here's a question, since our podcast is called, How They Crushed It, and your business is crushing it, I'm proud to say for you. Were you optimistic you guys were crushing when you came in and started? How optimistic, pessimistic, realistic were you in general?
Expectations-wise, I mean, off the get-go, because of the Liberatore brand, saying that they were opening a new concept, and it was so close to a very successful concept, being Liberatore's in Perry Hall, it did hit the ground running, and we didn't have to look back. It was more so not pivoting what to do when we didn't have sales, but how to be better and more efficient every day. So the other way would be, oh my goodness, we don't have sales. Luckily, at that point in our career, we didn't have to worry about that. It was just how do we get better? How do we put out a better product? How do we provide a better service for our guests? that was the bigger issue, which I much rather deal with those dilemmas than the other way.
Totally. But projections and all that stuff, you guys hit the ground running?
Projection, what's a projection? When we first opened, we didn't know what that was.
I love that.
No projections there, it was just busted out.
Well, here's a question I've asked some other people who are crushing it. You were 23. Do you look back and think that your naivete at the time helped you?
Yeah, I think it did and didn't. In certain circumstances, I can go back in situations. As long as you're learning from something, I feel like it's not a lost cause. But if you ignore something, I think that becomes something a little more detrimental to future decisions.
Yeah, because, not knowing what you don't know sometimes means you just put one foot in front of the other and keep going.
Yeah, exactly right.
I mean, that's some of my history. I mean, I look back and say, man, I'm glad I didn't know what I didn't know at that moment.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so you guys are going. You're now up and running. I like to joke about no projections, but now it's a real business, and you're running the show. I mean, talk to me about that. There have to be highs and lows all along that path.
Yes, I mean, not many people get to say they've gone through a pandemic. I mean, so that was I didn't have a playbook for that after college. Like, when pandemic hits, do this. Not
that other businesses weren't affected, but restaurants really, really, really had to change the way they do it. I mean, we talked about some some mutual friends of ours off the air before this. Mm-hmm. So talk me through it. I mean, that is a curveball that's nobody's ever had a playbook for.
No, and I think for us, I remember the time that it was announced that we're going to be shutting down, and I was like, guys, this could be as long as 2 weeks. Okay, what are we going to do about it? A year goes by. I'm like, well, sorry, projection wasn't good on that one. But we sat down with the entire executive team, the managers, like, hey, guys, 3 options here. We either close our doors and we hopefully just weather the storm, or we decide to kind of pivot and kind of just tiptoe and float by, or we do this full-fledged. And that was rebranding. We changed how we laid out our kitchen. We changed our website. We changed our marketing scheme. We grabbed more technology. So we became an upscale curbside service, even to the point where we would have people in costumes to kind of create little smiles and stuff like that.
That's so
multi-course pairings that you could grab with virtual QR codes to watch videos of a winemaker talking about the pairing that we gave them.
I love it. I'm going to ask you some marketing questions later, but it's, that's what you did what you had to do, right?
And I think the biggest thing with your statement was getting everyone bought into the same picture. I think a quote that I always bring up, and actually just recently used it today, was like, unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments. So if you don't set that expectation with the team, you're going to already be set for doom, and frustration will exist. So getting the team together, guys, I don't want this decision to be on me because I don't know what's going to happen from here. But when everyone said F yes, we said, okay, let's do it. And then we just trust in the team members there to.
It's powerful. Nick, that's powerful. Say the quote again so they can all write it down. I want you people to write this one down.
Right. Unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments.
It's wonderful. That's powerful. And did you know that quote back then when you did it?
No, but I was like, wow, yeah, absolutely. A couple months ago, I was like, that's it. That's exactly. It's well put. And so it's in the lingo right now.
Good for you, man. And is that one that's said around the Libs Grill staff now?
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
Dude, good for you. I love that. I was going to write it down, but I was too busy just soaking it up. And I will use that one. That'll become part of my regular vocabulary now. Let's stay on the pandemic. Okay. So, because there's so many business and life lessons through that. I mean, you start doing this, but then you said you had me at 2 weeks and you had me at a year, but the pandemic went longer than that.
Yeah.
So what was the trajectory for everything?
The collaboration of my partners kind of working on the back end to any government assistance that we could get, that was nice that individually we could focus on our stores. I mean, each partner has their own store. My father and my mother took a good portion of majority of the responsibility in trying to, what was available as resources from the government, which was very helpful at that time. And then just kind of, like I said, just converting the concept, and hopefully one day as things progressed and got more and more partial dining, then it was the distance, and got acclimated, and then we've never looked back since. I mean, we were probably about 2.5% of our sales before were curbside.
2.5%,
yeah.
Okay.
So now we're close to 10% of that being curbside.
That's, hold on, 10% now? Today in 2024?
So it's an ongoing opportunity now that we focus our attention on when we do menu rollouts, how we package things, the processes, and things like that. So, again, that negative experience was something that we could.
Yeah, it's another business. It's a different. It's a different revenue stream.
Right? Exactly.
10%. Wow, that's a bigger number than I would have.
I know.
Guessed.
It really is pretty wild.
That's great. So, how does Libs Grill become different after the pandemic? Other than, that's one example. How do you the staff, the not
That's
just
it.
the model. I mean, how different?
That was it. I mean, the biggest thing that perturbed me coming out of the pandemic is businesses such as ourselves blaming the market on our labor coming back. Say, oh, people don't want to work, people don't have the same work ethic as before, and never doing that self-reflection that says, okay, well, here's a tarnished industry that's, it's kind of somewhat devious. I mean, the industry is known for that. It's got alcohol at your disposal, so it's got a lot of these temptations. It's got long hours, nights, weekends, holidays, so who would want to work in that kind of environment? What kind of person would you be attracting? So kind of refocusing on what is, not only who is our target audience from the consumer side, but who's our target associate or employee? And really looking at what are we going to do to be a more suitable employee? How do we set the expectations for hiring somebody? And how do we set the expectations for them coming on that we won't tolerate this?
And retaining.
And so from then on, it was just, that is all the focus. I think if you spent majority of your time focusing on that, not so much, I don't want to take away from the marketing idea, but it's who you have representing your brand. And how you perceive your brand and how your guests perceive your brand is most directly impacted by the frontline associates. You can say, oh, I do all these awesome things. Look at me sitting on here, I crushed it. But in reality,
they have to be crushing it.
And I have to be feeding it. Like,
no, you do. You totally do. This is what I love. I love this. In true Smaltimore fashion, I have two relatives that actually work for you, and they knew who they are. I'll send this link to them.
Perfect.
But and they love work. It's funny. They love working for you. They love not that that's funny. They love working for your place, and they say the same thing. Meanwhile, these are younger people.
Yeah.
Look, not necessarily
That's
first
a great
job.
example. I mean, that's a young person that busts their butt day in and day out. So.
Yeah, and you want to attract their sphere. In your industry, we sell mortgages, but you can sell your food, not booze, but you can sell your food to someone who's 18, 28, 38, 98. So you want all that brand, and you want to be crushing it to all those people.
Yep. Yeah. 1,000%.
So that's one of your big that's one of the big focuses
and
that
it's
came
still
after the pandemic.
To this day. I mean, not only that, so there's a screening process, then there's how we onboarded people. In our industry, it was like, I remember sitting down with my father, and he came into the table, he was doing 1,000 things, phones ringing, all right, welcome, you got the job, sign the paperwork, this and that, and then you're kind of like, the expectations weren't set there. So now we're doing a lot of the virtual aspect that came out of COVID, and that was a resource that we didn't even fathom if we didn't go through that, I believe. So we do a lot of our orientations through Google Meets. So that one-on-one interaction with slideshows versus phone calls, this interruption, the guest wants to say this, before you know it, that they don't feel like they have the attention and the focus on, by the way, day one, this is how I expect our relationship to be. And that was never established early on.
So employee focused is, all the best
Double
leaders.
down, triple down, quadruple down.
I love hearing it. Because anybody listening, that's any industry. People have to buy in. They have to be a part of it. You can run a suitable business.
Right.
But you can't run a great business. No. You can't crush it.
No, can't crush it.
Well, dude, this is wonderful stuff, wonderful stuff. Nick, I like to always kind of go into, and I held you off a second ago when you were going to talk about marketing. Look, we want people that are listening to this podcast in any industry to take some nuggets away about sales, marketing, advertising, anywhere you go. So, we've heard your story, how you went from 13-year-old, it's not, by the way, it's not illegal when it's your parents, the way I view it. I'm not a lawyer, but,
so. Yeah, I don't think they're writing up any documents.
No. So you went from 13-year-old busboy to double major in the industry because you loved it so much, to stepping out and ultimately running this place with your family. Yep. Talk to me about the highs and lows along the way of marketing, advertising, how you got the word out. I know you have a family name in the town, which is, is that where we start with this conversation?
The brand existed since 1988. So that word of mouth.
Fine dining, though.
Fine dining, right? Yeah. So that name really carries a lot of weight, and we're very proud of that, and it's something that my grandparents are very proud of. So that. I had a leg up on, I think, competition opening up a store if it was just Joe Schmo's on the corner. But
you mean Johnson's Grill?
Johnson's Grills were. Hey, I'll go there. That sounds great. Absolutely. I think that the reality was it was a little easier for me. And honestly, I think we have a long way to go from our marketing. I think that we personally in the restaurant have core values that are very synonymous to how we go about standard operating procedures. And I think that making sure that the integrity of how you want to convey yourself is genuine. And I think that
that's one thing that every person we've interviewed says either the word genuine or authenticity. Yeah. It fascinates me that Because, by the way, Nick had not watched any of our previous episodes before coming in today.
I will, I promise.
No, but all these super achievers that are crushing it, one of those two words comes up. They mean the same thing.
Yeah.
Genuine. People need to know you're genuine or you're authentic.
Right.
And I hear you loud and clear. But okay, so you launch Lib's Grill, which is a shortened version of Liberatore's, which has a fine dining. How do you get the word out in the early days that, hey, by the way, this is not what you're getting down the street at Liberatore's? There's no white tablecloths.
Right, yeah.
All of that.
I think it was, the loyal guests that would frequent the Liberatore locations was a good foundation for us to target, to say, hey, just making you aware, if you're not in the mood for the Italian side, there's the steak, seafood, raw bar aspect. And then for me, it was just making sure that every guest that came in, we provided that type of experience that would let them be ambassadors of ours when they left. And I think that's the number one part of that.
I love that. I love the word ambassador because look, in any industry, word of mouth.
Right.
We can talk about marketing, we can talk about Instagram, we could talk about, targeted ads. That's not the same as an ambassador going out and talking about you.
Not at all.
Especially in your industry. Okay, so you got Libs to start you with. You're letting the people know, but what were you, tactically, what were some of the things you were doing to get word out there in the early days?
Obviously, we started with making sure that we created dialogues on social. We were on the big ones. We were terrible at Twitter. I think we might even still have one out there. Don't reach out to us. We're not saying anything. But Facebook, Instagram, we wanted to hunker down with that, even to the Google AdWords space world. But we found that our market was kind of predominantly on that Instagram and Facebook side, and then making sure that we weren't just posting and selling, but storytelling as well as engaging with our guests. Like, there's experiences that they had, and I know we hate to see reviews that are potentially negative, but if you reflect on them, you build on them, you thank that person.
By the way, everybody, Nick talks about, that's the third or fourth time Nick has talked about learning. And
yeah, I'm still doing that today.
No, I'm proud of you for that. Learning allowing yourself to look at a negative review. There's a lot of business owners that just hit delete on those and focus on the positive ones.
They are super stressful, and we have a team at actually Platinum Reputations that does a wonderful job assisting with us, but I work very close with Mandy in every response, and making sure that, we actually have a database in Resi that issue tables we contact directly. So if we know we've really dropped the ball, and we were actually discussing one today, and how one, do we prevent that from happening to other guests, but how do we get that other guest to come back?
Without going too deep, what was the negative experience? And it's just funny. Everybody, I didn't know I'd ask Nick about a negative experience, but I think this is fascinating on how you turn it around.
Yeah, and I'm actually, I hope this group hears this. So there was a miscommunication between a catering coordinator and ultimately a fundraising event that we did that led to us being unprepared. And obviously we wanted to make sure that we reached out and did what was necessary. And a lot of the times you see this review, it's written by one person. And one person is not dining, it's typically multiple people. And they're not saying, oh yeah, I reached out to this person, they're good in my book. The person that wrote that review might be okay with you, but there's other guests that aren't aware that you reached out to them. So how does the resolution go beyond just, oh, I satisfied that response, you see my comment as the owner there, we're good. But actually genuinely do the rest of their guests who they invited to their occasion, feel like we gave a crap about them. And that's the challenging part now, is not just responding to that guest, but making sure that we extend that invitation back and have everybody else back in. So I hope that we get the opportunity to do that with them soon.
Well, look, you got the fact that your company is so focused on dealing with negative reviews as much as you are proud of posting positive reviews. There's power there. I think that was probably in the early stages. That was the largest struggle, is seeing that a negative review has opportunity just as much as positive, but also sharing in both of them. And I think we as business owners know, we're checking things off. So the evening was perfect, great, that's what it should be. But there's a lot of good that came of that needs to be shared with the teammates, with your managers, with the guests. And I feel like I do a poor job of that. And actually, back in Fleming's, I had such an issue with it because I only saw negative, because everything that was great, like I said, good, that's what it should be. Perfect is how we're going for. And then I would not be giving compliments. So a really good exercise that Day Chang, I hope you're listening, he said, put 10 pennies in your left pocket, and when you're walking the floor, you have to move them to your right pocket. But the only way you do that is by giving a compliment to someone that's doing a good job. So at the end of the shift, I needed to make sure that all of my pennies were on the right side. And hopefully you keep adding to that and you're not walking around but. So you still do, is that still an exercise of yours?
Mentally it is. But not having the pennies. Hopefully it's not more than 10 in a day now.
Oh, that's phenomenal. That is just phenomenal stuff. That one I'm going to share with with our team, definitely, that's a great.
It's really
great
contagious.
learning.
I mean, good news is really contagious. I mean, as the boss, I think we don't take enough time to kind of reflect on it. I know I don't, and I think it's important to always see the positive, duplicate the positive, reflect on the negative, take the baggage out, make the process better, and move on.
I hope the answer to this next question is yes, but I don't. I mean, I find this fascinating. Is it contagious? Do you find?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When you start passing compliments around your staff on the floor, how did you see it?
I mean, everything is contagious. The negativity can also be contagious too. So I feel like, as you represent any brand, I think that that is exactly it. A culture is contagious.
Positivity is contagious, but negativity can be too.
Yeah,
that's a big one, guys. That's a big one. Well, dude, this is great. Let me ask you. So it's the spring of 2024 right now. This is one I always kind of go to. I mean, I love the story, by the way, and I love the way you guys take your people so seriously, your customers so seriously. But what's going on right now? I always try to end and get near the end here something super topical. Okay. It's spring of 2024. Yeah. Forget about where Lib's Grill's going and where it's been. We've covered some of that. Yeah. What are you doing right now that you think, that's really making an impact? So our mission statement, a portion of it, and we always read it off in every meeting, is to change a tarnished industry. So changing a tarnished industry and community involvement. And I feel like a lot of restaurants, including ourselves to an extent, open their doors and say, hey, listen, we serve the community, so we're community involved. And honestly, we all in our businesses donate a lot, but we don't know what contribution we're making truly in our community. So I feel like there's no ROI on community involvement.
Exactly. And even if I would just like the ROI on what they're doing with that investment, not even how it's impacting mine. And I think that to be community leader, I think we need to start to measure that a little bit better on both ends and set expectations on our partnerships, from our distributors to the people that we are partnering with the community. So the next challenge for us is a loyalty program that involves our loyal guests to have us direct our attention to things that they feel are most impactful direct to their local Lib's Grill.
They're in your collective community.
Well,
not theirs, it's your collective community.
Right, exactly right. But true people in neighborhoods with names, not just organizations. And I feel like that is how I would like to address loyalty, because loyalty is the hot topic that came up. Loyalty punch cards, discounts, and I can't get on board with that. I'm not passionate enough about that. So, I don't befriend my friends based off of how many times they buy me drinks at a bar. I just, because of the relationship that I have with them, that I know that they have my back, that if I'm in need, I ask them things. So how do we involve our loyal guests into the decision-making process of what's on our menu, how we're interacting in our community, even to the point where who we're hiring. So I feel like that's the kind of a loyalty program that kind of combines that.
That's great stuff, but it's based, I'm now going to combine for you. It's based on authenticity again.
100%.
At all your constituents, the community, your employees, your customers especially.
Partners.
Yeah, your partners,
distributors to who
they have to believe that you are who you say you are and who you act like you are. Maybe that's a weird way to put it, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're right on.
If they think you're full of it, they're not going to buy in.
Yeah, no.
Well, they'll see through it. They'll whisper. It'll affect sales in a way you don't know, and they just won't believe in you the way. True. So is that? I mean, how do you feel like that's going?
It's at the infancy stages of it, and for me, it's just like before we jump into it and just check it off our box, is like getting the right team that's passionate inside my group, and then collabing with other people that we know would take a lot of pride in it outside of the group, and then kind of creating that.
Well, if you ever want an outsider that's a non-restaurateur that you want to come over and just bounce ideas off of, I volunteer.
We could use some crushing it over there.
Well, you guys are crushing it. You are crushing it. I forgot to ask you a question at the beginning, though, and since it's how they crushed it, and it's funny. So our company, Direct Mortgage Loans, is orange, but I'm not baiting you here.
Okay.
Since you run a successful restaurant, what's your favorite crush flavor?
Oh, gosh. I mean, in the spirit of authenticity and honesty, I'm not a big crush guy. I really am not.
But you can sell a lot of them.
Sell a ton, yes.
What's the most what do you sell the most of?
At our restaurant, obviously the orange crush, but we have a lemon basil crush that's to die for.
Lemon basil crush. Nobody's ever answered. Okay. Everybody check that out at Lib's Grill. Yeah. lemon basil crush. So Nick, you keep saying, I've caught it and I've written in my notes here, you keep saying the word guests as opposed to customers. And springtime, there's a Masters golf tournament, they call them patrons. They never call them customers.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that spills over into the whole staff? Is that something you guys talk about?
I think it's a subliminal culture thing. Customers have transactions. You come in, you dine, you pay your bill, you leave. Guests, they're welcome all the time. Guests are your friends. Guests you're made to feel warm, cozy, and you have all the feels for. So I don't want, including myself, starting with myself, that we use the customer word, the C word.
I love that because, by the way, it's authentic again. You didn't know I was going to say this. The word guest just kept coming out of your mouth. And I think anybody listening in any industry, they're guests, they're patrons. Right. They're somebody that are choosing you, they're not a customer. It's not, if you treat them transactionally,
right. They'll treat you. They'll treat you transactionally.
You hear that, everybody? You treat them transactionally, they treat you transactionally. So, Nick, I wrote down a couple other things that it's funny how now that this is our 8th one, that a lot of leaders are saying some of the same things. I guess that shouldn't have shocked me, but you said grind it out earlier, and grind is a big word that I like to use because, here's a joke I'll make. Do you think this is glamorous?
I think parts can be. I think from the outside it definitely can be.
No, but not. The younger version of yourself, the 13-year-old, I bet you thought it was going to be more glamorous than it actually is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a messy side to the business, and every day you get a little bit of it.
Grinding's never glamorous, but you got to wake up tomorrow. Because by the way, don't you have to wake up tomorrow and do it all over again?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully I get to.
Always learning, everybody. Nick said it 2 or 3 times again today. I think that's a huge one. I mean,
from everyone too. Like there's my grandfather. He said, and I always respect him when he would engage with people, whether it was the president or like the dishwasher. He engaged in conversation to learn something, regardless of their title. And I take that with me when I'm interacting with somebody. It's like you're gonna learn something if you want to learn something. If you dismiss it, you're gonna miss a big opportunity.
That's so powerful. And I love the word ambassador, by the way.
Yeah, I like that too. I think when I said it, I was like, I like that. I want to use that more often.
So he didn't plan that one, everybody. No. But ambassador's a good one because, word of mouth something all businesses want. Right. But an ambassador is another level way beyond just word of mouth about, hey, the lemon basil crush tastes really good.
Right.
I mean, that's important too, but if somebody says, you have to try, I'm going to take you there myself.
I'm going to take you to my bar, my restaurant. That's
amen.
Can't be happier than that.
And look, I'm blown away by what's in your mission statement, change a tarnished industry. And look, I didn't say it's a tarnished industry. That's you from the inside saying that. And, the only way you're going to change it is to be genuine, be authentic around what you think it is.
1,000%.
Well, man, this has been phenomenal. I can't thank you enough for coming in.
I'm having a blast.
I mean,
hate that it's ending. Why?
We could talk for hours. We do try to keep this bite-sized. Try to keep it around 30 minutes. So we're, I think people look at the podcast and see an hour and 10 minutes, and it's a little too much to commit to. But look, you're crushing it, and I hope your customers. Guests.
Thank you.
Can you believe I just did that?
Yeah.
I hope your guests see this and see how authentic you are, those that haven't met you, because I've been to your place before I knew you, and it feels that way.
I appreciate that.
You should be proud as hell of that.
Thank you.
But thanks for coming in, man. You guys are crushing it.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll keep on crushing it. Our friend Nick Liberatore, check out Lib's Grill. They're easy to find on social. It's probably posted down here below. My friend Tiffany behind the camera can put it on there. But check these guys out and get a lemon basil crush. Tell them Nick sent you. See you, everybody.